It's Friday, November 4th, around 12 p.m., and I'm in my car heading up north to Jacksonville, Florida. It's about a 4-hour drive, and tonight I'll be playing on Best Bet Livestream. I grab $5,000 worth of chips and take my seat. The last time I played this game, I lost over an $11,000 pot. My mom, who knows nothing about poker, came in to cheer me on. I start with about $3,000. Hopefully we can find some run good. Let's get started. The action on this live stream starts off a little bit slow and some of the hands just aren't that exciting, but make sure to stay tuned all the way to the end of the video as the action heats up. The pots get bigger and things get pretty wild. First hand here, there's an under the gun raised to $40 by Dawn. I have King 10 of hearts in under the gun +2. In a tougher game, I think a 3-bet or fold strategy is the best, so I decided to re-raise to $125. My pre-flop strategy definitely differs with the amount of action players at the table. So far, I don't see too many action players at the table, so I think a 3-bet or fold strategy is the best. Let's say there's a couple action players behind me or in the blinds. I would be more tempted to call to try to play more hands with them, but I decided to re-raise and Dawn comes along with a call. We go heads up to a flop of 6-7-4 rainbow. I completely miss on this board, but given the fact that Dawn raised under the gun and then just called my 3-bet, I actually don't think he's going to connect well on this board with 2 pairs, sets, or straights. I think he's going to have a lot of Broadway cards, ace high, and some over pairs as well. So when he checks to me, I just do a one and done bet here. I make it $100, basically trying to get him to fold out ace-high hands, king-high hands that beat me, queen-high hands with equity. If he calls, I'll most likely just shut this one down. He does call, and we see an interesting turn card, which is the ace of clubs. It's a great scare card, but it doesn't give me any extra equity on the hand. I do think I could continue to barrel here some of the time, but given the fact that I have no extra equity, I don't have a straight draw, no flush draw, basically nothing at all. If I continue here, I'm representing such a narrow range. I just got to the table. I just decided to give it up and check it back. River card's a 3, one-liner to a 5. I'm probably not going to have many 5s. He's probably not going to have any 5s, but once he leads out here with a bet, I just fold, and he takes this one down. Next up, I bump it to $30 with pocket 3s, back over to the big blind who makes the call, heads up to a 10-deuce-5 flop. He checks, and I check this one back. Turn 4 of hearts, bringing 2 flush draws. My opponent leads out for 40, and I make the call with my open-ended straight draw and my pair. River card 9 of spades doesn't help us. He checks, I check back, and we lose to jacks. After this hand, I add on to my stack for $2,000, so now I'm in the game for $5K. There's a $25 straddle on under the gun, and Dawn opens it up here to $75 on the button. With pocket jacks in the big blind, definitely want to be raising it up here for value, so I make it $350. I go a little bit more than 4x here for a couple reasons. 1, because I'm raising out of position. 2, because we're fairly deep stacked. And 3, it's a live stream, so people tend to call a little bit lighter pre-flop, so might as well squeak out just a little bit extra money. Dawn now has king, queen of clubs. He could probably 4-bet or call. I think both options are fine. He elects to call, and we see a flop of 4-7-8 rainbow. Now this is an interesting board. Obviously, with pocket jacks, it looks pretty good. There's no overcards, but on this particular board, he's going to have a huge range advantage. He's going to have a ton of strong hands that I really can't have that often. I'm probably not going to be 3-betting pocket 4s, pocket 7s, 4-7, 4-8, even 5-6 suited very often from a button open. A lot of the time, I'm going to have over pairs, suited broadways, suited aces, so I elect to check here out of position. My opponent could put me into some tough spots if I bet this flop and he raises me. Also, by checking here, I can protect my checking range with over pairs, also allowing him to bluff with hands that are drawing dead. He decides to take a free card and we see a jack on the turn. So our hand went from good to very good. Top set here. Now I definitely think our hand is worthy of a bet, but I don't think a big bet is necessary. I don't think he has 9-10. He probably just has a pocket pair, ace high, or nothing at all. So I lead out for 1/3 size of the pot. And with king high, Dawn has a pretty easy decision. he lets this one go. Moving along, there's an early position raise to $30. With Jack 10 of clubs in the cutoff, I'm going to continue to go with my 3-bet or fold strategy on this table so far and re-raise to $125. And now the button goes into the tank, and you know what this tank is. This is that cold 4-bet tank. I know I'm going to be facing a 4-bet here, and he does decide to raise it up to $350. Now, just stereotyping this player a little bit, and also the way I've seen him play over the last hour and a half, I just think he's going to have a very strong hand here when an early position player raises and I 3-bet, and he cold 4-bets on the button. I think the worst hand he's going to have is queens, maybe ace-king. Against his perceived range of monster hands, Jack High doesn't look too good, but Jack 10 of clubs can play very well post-flop. We're over 360 big blinds effective. If I smash a board, I could win a massive pot, and if I don't, I could just easily fold here. So I decided to make the call, and we go heads up here out of position in a 4-bet pot, and it comes out 10 high, giving me top pair. Flopping top pair in a 4-bet pot is always good, but if he has those big overpairs, we're drawing to basically 2 outs now. I check and he bets $250, which I think he's going to do with 100% of his range. Now with top pair, we just have one option, which is a call, which is what I do, and the turn card's the 4 of spades. Now this is when the hand could get a little bit dicey. I check again, and if he bets big here, we could be in a pretty nasty spot. Like I said, I put him on queens, kings, aces, and ace-king. If he checks back here, I would put him on ace-king. If he bets big, I think he's going to have an overpair a lot of the time, and betting big is what he decides to do. He slides out a $700 turn bet here. We're facing a big bet in a 4-bet pot with top pair. I look over at his stack, and he has about $2,000 left, and now I have to figure out what I want to do. Well, it doesn't take me too long to realize that I'm probably just never good here in a 4-bet pot after he bets the flop and then continues for this sizing on the turn. I just think we're always beat, and luckily this time we were. He had pocket aces, we were drawing to 2 outs, and I think we probably lost a minimum in this hand. The table dynamics change a little bit over the next hour. A couple players bust out or leave, and we get a couple new players. The table loosens up a little bit. Specifically, seat number 8 is a new player, just stereotyping him off of how people are talking to him, how he looks. He looks like someone here for some action, looking to splash it up, looking to have some fun. Definitely a non-professional poker player. So when it folds all the way to him in the small blind, he decides to call for $25. With Jack 8 offsuit in the big blind, I ISO raise to $125. Obviously, our hand is pretty trash, but versus a limp from a player looking to have some fun, I decide to raise it up, and he ends up making the call. So we go heads up to a 10-6-3 board. He checks, and I put out a bet. My opponent makes the call. Once he calls this $200 bet, I think he just has something on this board, and he doesn't seem like the kind of player that's going to be folding a pair to me. So when the turn's a 7, I do pick up a gut shot straight draw, but when he checks, I decide to take a free card and check back, and we river top pair with the Jack of clubs. It is somewhat of a scary connected board. Backdoor flush gets there, but Russ decides to check over to me. With top pair, medium kicker on this particular board, I think a small bet is good. So I make it $200, and we do end up getting paid off here by 5-6, and we take down a small one. A little bit of a slow start here in the game for $8,000, playing 27% of hands, down around 1K on the day, but that can change very quickly when you got some action players at the table, and like I said, stay tuned, some big pots are coming up next. I decided to call a $75 raise here with King Jack of Hearts and the hijack from an early position raise, and Russ ends up making the call. Like I said, I'm going to change up my strategy as the table dynamics change a little bit here. We end up going 5 ways to a king high board, so giving me top pair. Early position player checks, and now Russ puts out a bet of $200. I think he can be doing this with a ton of hands. Ace high hands, a 7, a 3, weaker kings, flush draws, gut shot straight draws. Given the fact that we're so multi-way here, I don't really want to call 200 and allow players behind me to draw to a straight, 2 pairs, flush draws. So I decided to go with a very small raise here, basically trying to isolate the under the gun +2 player. I make it $475. One reason I don't like this raise size is that it's very unbalanced. If I would have flopped a set or had a combo draw like 4 or 5 of clubs or 7x of clubs and decided to raise, I would go much bigger, probably $600, $700. So making it 475 is obviously pretty unbalanced, but these players don't know that. It's the first time playing with me. Russ ends up making the call and we hit a jack on the turn. So now we have top two pair. The flush did get there. He can have a flush here some of the time, but I think a lot of the time he's just going to have a king X holding. Instead of bombing this turn card, I want to bet a size that he can call with all of his one pair hands. So I make it $475 again. If he calls here and the river's a brick, I can easily shove for his last $1,200. But unfortunately for us, Russ finds a very good fold with king queen. A very disciplined fold just because all my bluffs got there. I'm probably not bluffing for that sizing anyway, so props to Russ for letting this one go. I was way behind on the flop and somehow found that miracle jack on the turn. In this hand, I'm busy eating my first dinner here on the button with 5-4 of clubs. I call a $75 raise. We go 4 ways to a very pretty flop for my hand. 3, 6, 9, 2 hearts. So I have an open-ended straight draw and a flush draw. Action checks to me on the button. I bet $225. Only the straddler makes the call. And we see the king on the turn. We're heads up now and he checks over to me. I decide to take the free card and check back, and we river a straight with the 7 of clubs. We have the third nuts here, obviously a great spot, and it gets even better when the straddler leads out for an $800 bet, over a pot size bet here on the river. So of course we are losing to 5-8, 8-10 for a bigger straight, but he can have so many 2 pairs, he can have a slow played set, he can have some bluffs as well. I definitely want to be raising, and I do think because we are so deep stacked, over $8,000 effective, I can raise here with the third nuts, and if he re-raises me, I could probably find a pretty easy fold. So trying to find the right sizing here, I decided to go with a $2,200 river bet. $1,400 back over to my opponent. He has middle 2 pair, a pretty sick spot for him, but the only unfortunate thing for us is that I'm probably just never going to be bluffing in this spot. Maybe pocket 8s I would turn into a bluff, double blocking the nuts, and he pretty quickly realizes that as he folds 2 pair, which I think is a great disciplined fold. I'm just not going to be bluffing that often the way I played that hand. I'm just probably always going to have a straight when I raise to that size on the river. He read the situation correctly and gets rid of his hand. Fast forward about 20 minutes, Don, a guy we played a bunch of hands with so far today, raises to $75. Queen 10 of spades in the cutoff, a re-raise or a call are our options, and I elect to go with the aggressive route. I make it $250. Back over to Don, suited ace, easy call for him. Heads up to ace 8-8 with 1 spade. I do completely miss, but I have some backdoor equity here. I can hit some backdoor straights, backdoor flushes. I can maybe even hit a queen or a 10 and have the best hand. So I start out with a $125 c-bet. My opponent makes the call, and versus this sizing, I do think he's going to call with a wider range of hands, possibly some smaller pocket pairs, even some hands with some backdoor equity as well. So when the turn card's a 7, I don't pick up any extra outs, no flush draws, no straight draws. However, I do think I could double barrel here, and he's basically going to have to fold everything but an ace. So I think to myself, well, what would I do here if I had an ace-king, ace-queen, or ace-jack hand? I would probably bet half the size of the pot, so I decided to go with a $375 bet. My plan here is if he calls, I'll put him on an ace, and if the river card is a 7 or lower, I'll go with a big triple barrel bluff on the river, trying to get him off an ace-10 or ace-jack hand. If the river card's a 9 or higher, or an 8, I'll just check back and give up. He puts in the chips for $375, so I just think he's just always going to have an ace here. And the river card is a queen, one of those cards that I'm just not going to be triple barreling on. We do make a pair, so if he was somehow hero calling us with 9s, 10s, or jacks, we got there with a better hand. He checks, I check back, and his ace is good. A fun hand coming up next here. Under the gun makes it $75 off a straddle. There's a call, and the button, Russ, makes it $250. I feel like this sizing is just pretty weak. I think he would be going bigger if he had a really strong hand. Well, I look down at one of those really strong hands in the small blind. I think this is just a mandatory 4-bet squeeze, so I bump it up to $900. I started the hand with $9,000. Russ has over $7,000. Back over to the hijack player who has pocket tens, so he is actually in a pretty sick spot. He eventually makes to fold, but Russ came here to see some flops. He literally snap calls my $900 bet. So we're out of position, super deep stacked, in a 4-bet pot against a player who does not like to fold. Let's hit an ace or a king one time. Not this time. Queen, 9, 5, 2 diamonds. We completely miss. This is just one of those boards where I am not going to be bluffing on against this player. So I check. He checks back. Turn 5 pairs to board. Given the fact that he didn't bet the flop, I feel like we could have the best hand here. After the board pairs, it looks pretty good. So he checks back again, and the river card's a 6. I check for a third time, just trying to get to showdown, and checking is not what Russ wants to do. He fires out $2,000 here. I give it a thought for a couple seconds that maybe he's bluffing, but I just don't think he is. So I fold, and he wins this one with a straight on the river. Russ and I have gone back and forth playing some pretty big pots against each other. He just won a massive pot before this one with a set of kings, so now he has a huge stack. In this hand, the graphics are a little bit behind. He races the cutoff to 75. I have 8-6 of hearts on the button and 3-bet to 250. Russ, always looking to see a flop, comes along with a call. We see a 7-high board where I flop a gut shot straight draw and a backdoor flush draw. And surprising to me, Russ leads out now for $200. When he leads out on this flop in a 3-bet pot, I just think he's always going to have a 1-pair hand. Well, I can have all the best 1-pair hands. I can have aces, kings, and queens. I do have a gut shot straight draw, backdoor flush draw. I could potentially put in some big bets and maybe get him to fold out those 1-pair hands. So I decided to turn my hand into a semi-bluff versus this lead. I raise it up right away to $675. I could be doing this with hands like aces and kings and queens as well. Back over to Russ, and he doesn't think for more than 3 seconds and makes the call, which makes me feel like he's just always going to have a 7x hand. This pot is ballooning quickly, already $1,700 in the middle, and the turn card's the king of spades. Doesn't give us any extra equity, no flush draws, no better straight draws, but it is one of those cards that could be a scare card to a 7x hand. So when he checks over to me, I do think I want to continue to bet here with my bluffs. If I had jacks or queens, I would probably bet small. If I had aces, ace, king, or kings, I would definitely be betting this turn. So if I have a bluff, let's bet as well. I make it $700. Back over to Russ, and he gets the chips in the middle basically by the time that I announce the bet. After he makes this snap call, I think to myself, man, Lex, you are just punting it off here with 8 high. What are you doing? Over $3,000 in the middle. I just don't think we are ever going to win this hand until we see the 5 of clubs on the river. Holy shit. I semi-bluff raised a flop after a 3-betting pre-flop. I bet $700 on the turn, and I just hit the absolute nuts on the river. I misread my hand a couple weeks ago and thought I had a straight, so I look back at my card, read the board, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, you do have a straight. All right, a great spot to be in. A bunch of money in the middle. My opponent doesn't seem like he wants to fold. Now we got to figure out how much do we want to bet.
How much are we going to bet? Just pot it? $22 punch. And a snap call. 8-6 is good.
There you go. Good job. I was so sure you didn't have much of anything.
You were correct. You were very correct, Russ. He just pinked it there on the river. Wow.
Gutter ball.
Gutter ball.
Terrible, man. I like
All right,
it.
Lexo's up
I like
over
this
10K
one.
now too. Look
Wow.
at that 12K stack for
Bet
Lexo,
the whole
guys.
way and then it gets there.
$2,300 river bet gets snap called by my opponent. We end up winning almost an $8,000 pot here. There's only about 30 minutes left on the stream. I'm up now almost about $4,000, cruising along. Things are going good. It feels good to run good and get lucky on a live stream. It gets even better because after this hand, I end up ordering a brownie ice cream sundae. It's just a chocolate explosion. And as you guys know, I love me some chocolate. Last hand of the night here, there's a limp from a new player in seat number 8. Queen 10 of clubs, I raise it up here to $125. I get 3 callers and see a 10 high board giving me top pair queen kicker. When the action checks over to me, I decide to go with a big bet of $325, really just trying to take this one down on the flop. 2 players fold, but the action's back over on the initial limper, and he decides to make the call. So I do feel like, given the fact that he's last to act here on the flop, he can have a wider range of calling hands. He could have a 10, maybe a 4x hand, some pocket pairs, ace-high gut shot hands. So when the turn's the 8 of hearts and he checks over to me, I do think it's hard to get called by a worse hand for 3 streets. The pot is bloating up a little bit, so I decide to trap here and also pot control on the turn and check this one back. The final card we see here is the King of Hearts. Backdoor flush gets there, 1 overcard to our pair. If he checks, I may bet small, but checking is not what my opponent decides to do. He looks back at his cards and then now leads into me for a $500 bet. This is actually a pretty interesting spot. We're sitting here with second pair. The board has run out a little bit scary. Backdoor flushes get there, 1 overcard to our pair. But would he really be leading out here on the river with a hand like Jack 10 or 9-10 for a single pair? I just feel like he's never doing that. So when he leads into me for $500 on this river card, I just feel like we're going to be beat here a lot of the time. He could have slow played sets, 2 pairs, backdoor flush draws, even just a single pair king beats us. I don't think we're going to be good here that often, but then I start thinking to myself, well, you did check back the turn. He could be turning a hand into a bluff. It also seems a little bit sketchy that he would lead out when the king comes on the river. Just a card that's going to be so much better for my hands than his. He's representing such a narrow range, so eventually I just put in the call for 500 and he shows ace-4 offsuit for a 4. I show the queen 10 for second pair, and it's good. We end up taking down our last pot of the night. Shortly after this, the stream ends up breaking. We end up racking up our chips, heading to the cage, and cashing out for the night. Finally, some run good on a live stream. Ended up in the game for $8,000. Cashed out for $12,110. That's a profit of a little over $4,000 in just about 5 hours. I ran very well this entire stream. I didn't get coolered, no bad beats. I picked up some decent hands. I made some big hands on the river. That hand with 8-6 of hearts when I semi-bluffed the turn and the flop and binked the nuts on the river. Oh my God. I mean, that was just one of the sicker hands I think I played all year. So it feels good to run good. I had a really, really bad summer. I basically ran the worst I've ever ran in my entire life. I had one of the worst downswings I had ever been on in my entire life. I'm going to talk more about that next video. But this last summer and, even some of the fall was really bad. But the last 2 months have just been, just straight up, 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 up. I had a huge month last month in October, over $25,000 profit last month in October, and then starting off this month in November, up around $4,000. As always, thank you to Best Bet for allowing me to come here, play on the stream, use their footage to make a video. The staff here is great, the dealers were great, the table was awesome, it was a lot of action. It was a little slow at first, but we got the straddle going, we got people loosened up, and it became a pretty good game. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'm here in Jacksonville one more day. I'm heading back to Miami for 2 days, and then I'm flying up north to play some Northeast poker. So the next couple vlogs after this will be in the Northeast area. But as always, please like the video, comment down below to help with the algorithm, and subscribe. Let's get to 50,000 subscribers. Until next time, I'll see you.